Well, I don't really have an intro or anything that I can really run ahead of this. I wasn't really planning on putting any videos up. It might help if I did this too. This whole thing is an adventure in its own right. I got a light here I need to plug in. And I don't really have a good place to plug it. So, where can I run this? Yeah. This is Make It Up As You Go Along with Elsie Matthews, broadcasting from the wonderful state of Texas. And that is true. It is the wonderful state of Texas. I enjoy Texas. I grew up near Texas. Here we go. Oh, now you can see my face. Knock the brightness down a little bit. Change the color just a hair. Move the light. Get it into position. Yeah, I really wasn't planning on doing this today. This is really a hackneyed setup. I'm not going to argue that. It's if you want to make fun of it, go right ahead. I'm already making fun of it in my own head. Join the club. Get in line. You're going to be behind me making fun of this whole thing. So, anyhow, I really wasn't planning on starting any serious videos or broadcasting on this channel until for a couple more weeks. I've got personal life getting in the way. Not that going on a vacation is getting in the way, but can't argue with that. I've got plans for this channel. I have educational ideas in mind I'd like to do with it, but right now there's something that really needs to be discussed. I've got a lot of thoughts on this matter, like a lot of other Americans, particularly of the right-leaning persuasion. And there's something that I saw today going through my news feeds that I typically do first thing in the morning, that left me disgusted and appalled, considering this occurred in the light of a vigil honoring mourning the loss of and honoring the life of Charlie Kirk, founder of the nonprofit Turning Point USA. I have seen more videos of Charlie Kirk the last few days than I have, I'd say, within the last 60 hours than I have in the previous 10 years. All because one individual, for political motivations, internalized as a malignant hate, decided that rather than confront whatever arguments Charlie Kirk had put out there, and rather than go directly to Charlie Kirk at one of his campus gatherings and speak with him directly, it was an open mic forum, always was, once Charlie did the Q&A sessions, rather than do the honorable and civilized thing, this man decided, young man, I deign to even call him a man, but a young man, decided that he was better off taking a sporterized Mauser rifle converted to .30-06 caliber, crawling up on a roof of a building opposite where Charlie was holding his Q&A session in a recessed area of the campus, firing a single shot and murdering Charlie Kirk, a father of two, husband of 4 years. His wife is now having to face the fact that she's going to raise her two daughters on her own. It is an unthinkable proposition for a young mother. It's a heart-rending loss for two young children. There's no justification whatsoever for what this individual did. But that, in its own right, does not lend itself to justification by the other side to take any action comparable or as violent in response to the unwarranted, unjustified, politically motivated murder of one of its own. Now, this is what got me started. I was looking at this article on Fox News this morning. Video captures fight erupting at Charlie Kirk vigil after activist reportedly shouts profanity at crowd. Terry Wilson, a local Black Lives Matter activist, reportedly shout F Charlie Kirk before sparking a massive vigil brawl. The video is here. I haven't watched it yet. Let's take a look at this insanity before we go on.
Watch now,
Oh, no,
Land of the Bible, in a new series. Explore
Not
the
that I have
places
anything
where
against the Land of
Jesus
the Bible or
walked,
anything like
from
that.
the green Galilee
I
to
would absolutely
Jerusalem's
love to visit
ancient
this.
streets.
But,
Join us
you know,
on a spectacular
as one of my favorite
journey to
streamers
Israel,
says, you know,
the ancestral
well,
homeland
Walter
of the
says,
Jewish people,
streaming is done anyway.
where miracles
I understand.
happen and faith
My life
comes
is
to life.
frequently lived by the
See the
proposition
Bible
of
story
Indiana Jones.
unfold.
I'm making this up as I go along. But
Discover
I would
the
absolutely love
land
to
of the
visit Israel.
Bible in a new
It's
series.
one of those places my father's been to, and I would love to go myself. But anyways, let's take a look at this insanity. So, that's just a small taste of it. My father is fond of saying you cannot fight the weapons of darkness. You cannot fight the war of light with the weapons of darkness. And that's no more true in this matter than it is in any other. In fact, if you were to carry certain propositions to their logical conclusions, there is no other outcome but armed violence. And that is not what we want. The Founding Fathers built this country on the proposition that people can talk their problems out like responsible adults. Two of the most famous presidents who came after George Washington, Thomas Jefferson and James Adams, invert their names, and you'll get their order correctly, had vehement disagreements over the nature of the executive power and the federal government's power, and got to such a situation on the outs that they didn't speak to each other for years, never mind that these two men were instrumental in drafting one of the most profound documents Western civilization has ever turned out. Alongside Benjamin Franklin, these two men drafted and through the Continental Congress in 1776 published the Declaration of Independence. There's no question that these two men had the same aims and goals in mind. They just had different views of how to approach the issue. How was the new executive government, eventually the constitutionally formed executive government, supposed to conduct itself? That disagreement, which led to more than a decade of silence between the men, wasn't broached and brought back into friendly terms until Abigail Adams encouraged John Adams to write Thomas Jefferson because of their long-standing history with each other, their prior friendliness, Abigail Adams was wise in this matter to encourage her stubborn-headed husband, who he admitted he was himself quite a stubborn-headed human individual, to speak to this man who shared the same dreams and aspirations, even if they were seen through a different lens, even if they were seen through different mechanisms, and reopen dialogue. And so for almost a decade, maybe a little more, these two men carried on a correspondence between Massachusetts and Virginia in a friendly nature, discussing the future of the American Republic in a civil way. Unlike Hamilton and Burr, who took it to pistols in Weehawken, New Jersey, across the Hudson River from New York City, that fateful day in 1803. These two men, despite the name-calling and the mudslinging that did occur quite regularly in the early Republic, talked. They reasoned. They followed biblical principle in the sense that, come, let us reason together. In other words, let us talk this out. We can't do that. Those of us who want to honor Charlie Kirk cannot do that. What we saw here. We cannot do this. We cannot go out and let somebody with a loud, foul mouth and an intent to stir violence draw it from us. We have to be the bigger individual. We have to sit quietly and take it. Let them prove who they are. I'm reminded of what Hamlet said in Act 3, Scene 1, talking about taking the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, the pangs of disprized love, the proud man's contumely, the law's delay, the insolence of office. All of these wrongs, we have to be willing to accept them. That's part of being an adult. It's hard. I have a bad temper. I tend to run off at my mouth. I don't like it, but it's true. We cannot let some petulant, petty, hard-hearted, evil-minded, dark, soulless little individual drag us down to their level and beat us with experience. Now, on the converse side of this discussion, those on the left who keep celebrating Charlie Kirk's unfortunate demise, untimely demise, think that because words are violence, that this is a justification for putting a bullet in the neck of a man and watching him bleed out. Yes, I watched the video. I made that mistake. It's as horrifying as the Irina Zurtskaya video. I cannot begin to fathom the last thoughts that went through Charlie Kirk's mind. I know what he saw once the world turned dark. As the theologian said, to death frees us. I think it was John Bunyan who said that death frees the believer from the prison and takes him to the palace. And that's where Charlie Kirk is. There's no doubt in my mind. But words or violence is not a mantra the left wants to continue pushing anymore. And there's a reason. Let's take this to its logical conclusion. You've set the bar for homicide lower. Homicide has only two justifications in law that allow for it, that I'm aware of, that I can think of off the top of my mind. That's self-defense, the defense of others, the life of others, or your own from an immediate, tangible, present threat. Or the other justification that's allowed is the state-sanctioned taking of life as punishment for murder. But with the constant mantra of words are violence, you've set the bar. You've taken that bar, which is extremely high, and now you've brought it down here. What had been a nigh unscalable mountain is now a climbable fence. In the play A Man for All Seasons, Robert Bolt put the following words in the mouth of Sir Thomas More. He said, "I would sooner give the devil benefit of law for my own sake." The reason being, if you start making the exceptions for your opponent or to do unto your opponent, you've begun making exceptions for your opponent to do unto you. Now, that's not what I'm advocating. I am not saying that we should be going out and doing violence upon those we politically disagree with. Far from it. I am saying that the left, the extreme left, the neo-Jacobins, as I like to call them, because they've now reached the point where the idea of murdering their opponents rather than confronting their argumentation and reasoning together like sane human beings is no longer a concept in their mind. They've lowered that bar. And now, unfortunately, I'm sure there will be lone individuals angry, letting this murder fester as a malignancy in their own heart. The taking of the life of a 31-year-old man who sat there in the open with a microphone, not a weapon. The weapon he brought was his mind. But the taking of this juxtaposes so horrifically to what happened to him. You cannot say that this was justified. There's been a lot of pleasing words said by the left. But anytime one of them has opened their mouth, they've usually followed their saying of, "Oh, well, what happened to Charlie Kirk wasn't justified, and it is unacceptable that we kill for politically motivated violence." But when you throw in that "but," you've created an exception to your own statement. And you attempt to find a way to justify it in your own mind. If you have done that, why don't you just look in the mirror and admit to yourself, I agree with the murder of Charlie Kirk? That's what you're doing. Don't create an exception. You can't create an exception in this instance. Like that idiot on CNN who was speaking with Senator McCarthy. I think that's his name. I'm trying to remember all these details off my head because I didn't bring this stuff up. I don't have it readily available. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, Kevin McCarthy was speaking with I can remember. I have to see if I can go find it real quick because I know I commented on it. Let me see if I can find it real fast. It just, this is one of those things that absolutely floored me. It's the prime example of what I'm talking about in the fact that you have this but-ism, this exception making that some on the left want to make, and in the media too, which is even more disgusting. I'm sorry. You're out there, you've got these morons. Yeah, here we go. Let me close this down. Open this up. Let me see. Yeah, so you had, let me throw this open here. So Nate Burleson asked former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, I'm sorry, I had him as a senator. He asked him on Thursday about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and he said, let me see if I can find it. It says, not everyone took to his words or his rhetoric. At times they were offensive to specific communities. Okay, the premise is set. But with that said, this is not the time to focus on that. Okay. We are focused on this tragedy. Are you? Speaking of this tragedy, is this a moment for your party to reflect on political violence? Is it a moment for us to think about the responsibility of our political leaders and their voices and what it does to the masses as they get lost in misinformation or disinformation that turns in and spills into political violence? Why don't you just say, Mr. Burleson, Charlie Kirk had it coming? That's exactly what this says. Charlie Kirk had it coming. Because of what he said. Absolutely because of what he said. Quit justifying, by the lowest bar possible, political violence. Quit lowering the bar lower than it already is. It's time to abandon the mantra, words are violence. Why? Because this is what you get. The door's open. We are now going to have one heck of a time slamming it shut. If we don't, the Pandora's box that has opened will yield horrid, unspeakable violence. This is why I am saying those on the right need to take the effronteries that are being thrown in our direction like the adults that we are and turn this back at them and say, that's fine, say it. You have the right to say that. But you know what this guy didn't up here in Idaho do? He didn't have the right to create a massive public disturbance. Disorderly conduct. He could be arrested for that. If he laid his hands on anybody, that's assault or battery, depending on the if he threatened them, if he laid his hands on them, assault, battery, you name it. Let the law do what the law does best. Let the prosecutors prosecute. If this guy wants to break the law, let him break the law, and then let him pay the punishment. Frack around and find out, as they would say on Battlestar Galactica. If it were in the period of the current time. But it is going to take both sides to shut this door, to shut this box. Until the left, correct, let me be correct here. Until the left re-raises the bar of justifiable homicide back up to the only legal exceptions we've known until now from self-defense of one's own life or the defense of another, as well as state-sanctioned taking of life for punishment. That's an argument for a whole other day. I've got my thoughts on that too. But until the left is willing to abandon the petulance that comes with words of violence, just because somebody disagrees with you, just because somebody doesn't think that the idea of transgenderism makes logical sense, just because you think that the person who tells you that abortion is murder because we can establish when brainwaves and heartbeats begin, and don't give me that clump of cells bull. At some point, life has to begin. The question is, where is it? And it's safer to take it all the way back. If you disagree with that, that's fine. But you don't have the right to murder someone just because they say it. Quit calling people fascists, because that lowers the bar. Quit calling your opponents politically charged names for the purpose of denigrating their humanity, so that it makes it easier to do political violence upon them. Stop it. It's time to stop it. Charlie Kirk's death is a wake-up call. It is a irony of ironies, a turning point. I think he would find the irony of all that kind of interesting. He was a thoughtful man that way. But it's a turning point. We either reestablish and reaffirm the importance of civil discourse in society regarding hot button issues, or we descend into the abyss of unholy violence that is awaiting America. Brother versus brother, father versus son, mother versus daughter, state versus state. Who God only knows. I am not God. I don't see how this is going to play out. I can see the logical ends, but that doesn't mean that I see the end altogether. But the logical outcome of this is terrifying. Well, on that note, I've ranted long enough. I don't know if anybody's sat around and watched this. Probably not. I write things down to get them out of my mind. Maybe that's what's happening here. Sometime in the near future, I'm going to have an opener and a closer. Some kind of, all the fancy stuff that goes with streaming. I've got the mind to create this. I just haven't done it yet. But I want to, if you have watched this, I want to thank you for sticking around long enough to hear me out. I've tried to be as reasonable as I can and keep a logical point of argumentation. It's not easy when your passions well up inside of you and you've been a subject to a lot of chronic mental illnesses for a long time, particularly depression and anxiety. That's why I call it red, white, and blue. I've read a lot. And white because it's the color of one of the colors of the American flag. Blue, well, you live with chronic depression since you're 14. That's how it happens. You just tend to be blue from time to time. So on that note, don't know what anything special to leave you with. Like I said, I thank you if you stuck around this long. God bless. Pray for the peace of the United States. Pray for the family of Charlie Kirk. And I will see you on the